Good morning. Welcome to the Budget and Finance Committee. I'm Councilmember Mitchell England. I'll be chairing today's meeting. Thank you very much for Council Members Bonin and Blumenfield for being here this morning. We have this afternoon we have a quorum. So let's go ahead and go into public comment. All right, Herman. Herman?
Oh, Mr.
Armando?
Papa? Who's your daddy?
2 minutes.
So, R.J. Minor's legal liability is dealing with the matter of a complex police tort, and we know what that legal liability is. Show me the fucking money. And that's for R.J. Minor. Should be 10 times the amount for retaliation by this fucked up city who steals people's homes off of Venice. Then item 5, CD8, Mr. Dawson, African American community. What the fuck does Dawson know about the community? What? I support a plan check to permit fees necessary for construction of destination Crenshaw. Well, fuck Crenshaw and fuck your project on item 5. Then we go to Rapist the Rue and that dumb fucking...
Stick to the items under this committee purview. If you don't do that, then you're going to forfeit your time.
I'm reading motion under Rue.
You heard me. Stick to the rules.
Fucking relative authorization to provide $450,000 funding for fucking homeless service. The same fucking homeless service that you've denied me a fucking place to call home, you stupid white nigger Jew. In addition to your fucking program, thank you, Peppa Pig, for sitting in.
Okay, so you're off the agenda, so...
What the fuck?
Okay, your time is up.
4 fucking seconds,
time is up. Follow the rules. The start is 1 minute for general public comment.
Fuck you, asshole. I allege that the meeting transcripts
1 minute.
confidently show that council members confused by my First Amendment devise an official plan.
Your time is up if you're going to yell into the mic. This is your last warning, Mr. Herman.
Against myself and other members of the public.
You can talk all you want, but don't yell.
Of our subsequent
okay, you're done.
With the city of
Sergeants, please escort him out. I've already given them warning.
There's
no yelling.
Plan. Fuck you!
Go ahead and escort him out.
I have 41 fucking seconds,
Bye-bye.
you fucking Jew.
Thank you.
Stupid
Goodbye.
fucking dumb little...
All right, Herman is still continuing to yell out, as he does every single day.
All
right, goodbye.
That fucking
thank you.
Run around,
taking
people out of
thank you.
speech, retaliation, discrimination.
Hey, sergeants, please escort him out. He's still... Come on. You're disrupting this meeting.
I'm leaving,
Goodbye.
motherfucker. Fuck you for the record. Fuck your
Thank you.
wife and fuck your retarded family.
Okay, so Mr. Hunt, come on up.
I'm the Red Chief Hunt. You can just do public comment for me. Skip all the agenda stuff.
Just a minute for general public comment.
Okay, so here's the deal. Paul Koretz, Mike Bonin, and whoever the city attorney is for Venice sold them out. Sold out to the developers. I talked to Chief Dennis Cotto, and you guys are writing homeless people tickets, trying to get them out of Venice and stuff like that. That's regentrification. That's a no-no. Had Bill Rosendahl would have been in that office, that wouldn't have happened.
So if you could stick to items specifically under the purview of this committee, budget and finance, please. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about, the finance of Venice Beach. You know, when you ran me out, you guys financed me $270,000. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, and that was the first lawsuit. Now I got another one going, so, you know, it's ongoing, but Koretz and Bonin sold Venice out, and that comes from the chief.
All right, Wayne.
So let's see here. Number 1. Very good. You're going to get sued up the asshole again. A complex police tort. Nothing complex. You're simply using cops to shake people down and fuck people. So yes to the minor getting a full settlement and attorney's fees and punitive damages. Number two, the attorney conflict panel. Well, you're going to need that because Mr. Hunt's lawsuit says you're going to need that. You're going to need a lot of outside counsel because you're going to deal with something brand fucking new on the liability front. Retaliatory pretextual arrests for First Amendment violations. This is the new thing. It's called Lozman versus the City of Riviera Beach, Florida. You niggers didn't read it. I read it, and you're going to be paying a lot of money. Number three, funding for $25,000 to continue the illegal firearm recovery. Where are my guns? You stole my fucking guns. Okay. Where are my guns?
You're not under, go ahead and start as 1 minute for John.
My guns!
You know the rules. 1 minute for
So
John.
what do I get you little...
So if you're not going to speak under any items under this purview of
Okay,
committee,
so
your time is
let me
done.
just go to the general
It's your only warning.
comment for you little Jew shit.
Okay, you're off topic, and you're not under items under this purview.
Good.
Your time is up. I've already warned you. You're done.
It's not my fault your wife does...
If you can go ahead and escort him out, please.
It's not my
He's
fault.
disrupting this meeting. Thank you very much.
It's
Bye, Wayne.
not my fault that he doesn't get any.
Thank you. Sir Hunt, you're disrupting this meeting again as well, so
No way, he can just...
go ahead and sit. If you're going to disrupt this meeting, you're disrupting this meeting.
No, I'm not. I'm telling you
No,
that he gets
okay.
minutes.
Sergeants, please escort both of them out for disrupting this meeting. Goodbye. Thank you. Sergeants, escort them out. They're both continuing to disrupt this meeting. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Goodbye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. He's still disrupting this meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you. All right, colleagues, so with that, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention. He's still disrupting this meeting. Mr. Hunt, you've got to leave this meeting. The sergeants are showing you out. Keep walking. You know the rules. Keep going. Thank you. Have a nice day. All right. Folks, welcome to Monday. Colleagues, on the consent calendar, we'd like to move items 3 and 5. We'll go ahead and move those. We did have I don't know if this is a real person or not. Mr. Huerta? Is there a Mr. Huerta here? Probably not. Okay. So, not a true person. That closes public comment, and there's no other cards for any of the items from any of the members, from any other public. So we'll go ahead and close general public comment and public comment. So we've moved the consent calendar, and items 3 and 5. We'll go ahead and go into the closed. Actually, before we go into closed, we can dispose of the regular agenda items 4, 6, and 7. Colleagues, do you have any special requests on 4, 6, and 7?
I just have one quick thing on item 6.
On item 6, okay. So items 4 and 7, we'd like to, on item 4, to instruct the CAO to review the request to determine the likely revenue impact and identify any shortfalls it may create. And then also further, this committee would like to work with the city clerk and the city attorney to determine whether those provisions of parking spaces is an appropriate general benefit to be provided by the city to support the bid operations in Hollywood. So with that recommendation, we'll go ahead and move the item. Without objection, then that'll be the order. Oh, wait, last minute. Mr. Kretz is weighing in.
I have
Yes.
a question for the CAO if
On item 4?
they're prepared. Oh, item 6.
Oh, that was item 4.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so without objection on item 4 with the recommendation, we'll go ahead and move forward. On item 7, then, the recommendation will be to instruct the CAO to work with Los Angeles Police Department and LADOT to review the request and to make the determination whether this public safety issue can be addressed using funds provided for in the adopted budget. So with that recommendation, colleagues, if you're okay, we'll go ahead and move forward without objection. That'll be the order. Thank you so much. Now item 4, called special by Mr. Bonin. So we could have staff come up for item...
You mean 6?
I'm sorry, for item 6.
Item number 6 is a motion Roof Reporting
Wanna see if
relative
you're
to
paying attention.
authorization to provide $450,000 in funding from the Homeless Services Program line item in the 2018-19 unappropriated balance for 25 supportive housing units in the Anita Mae Rosenstein campus for the LGBT Center.
Is
Thank you. LGBT Center homelessness, obviously, I'm supportive of the intention behind this. Just had a question. This is a time-sensitive matter?
Yes.
Okay, because ordinarily, I would want anything regarding expenditures from the homeless services to also go to H&P, which this hasn't, and I think as a matter of policy it should, because we should be dealing with this money strategically and not as one-offs. I understand the timing on this. I do just want to note, I'll let this one go, but I think using this money for permanent supportive housing is bad. We have Triple H approved, we have a funding source for PSH, and there are a million other needs to deal with the crisis of homelessness. PSH is always going to have the foundation, is always going to have developers behind it. It's got a dedicated funding stream, and I want to make sure that every cost overrun for every PSH project in the city doesn't wind up eating up the money for every other homeless program that can get people off the streets, you know, in the next week or the next 6 months as opposed to 4 years from now. So I just want to note that as a caveat, that I'm going to have increasing heartburn if we keep seeing stuff like this.
Yeah, Mr. Kretz.
Yeah, this item is of some interest to me because I might be making a similar request in my district. So I'm wondering if the CAO can provide us with an initial read of whether this request is workable.
Tim here from the Housing Community Investment Department can speak more to the financing on this one. It's my understanding that this project was fully financed at its original budget. There was a cost that was originally estimated for some requirements that DWP had placed on the project that came back when they had a real estimate at higher than what was originally estimated. And this is the last piece of funding for the project that's needed for it to close their financing.
Yeah.
But
I'll ask that. Figure it out. Okay.
Right, and the project is always already at the maximum loan under the Triple H program. And these are some extraordinary costs. They're having to widen Santa Monica Boulevard, and Caltrans came back with numbers that were just unexpected. And they could go to other sources, the county or the state, but that would push them. I mean, they're ready to close now, and that would push them into next year for closing.
Okay.
Similarly, I mean, I share the concerns that were raised by Mr. Bonin, and always am worried about finance gaps, whether it's subventions or other things. They always seem to appear wherever there's money. And in this case, you've got a $50 million project, and this is less than 1% of the budget, I guess. And this is the area where maybe there's a little bit of money that we can take from something else, so that's where the shortfall occurs. That's the cynical side of me that would read that. I'm not saying that's how it went down, but what I worry about is that happening. As soon as someone sees that as the avenue, then we're going to get these things all the time. So the lost funding, what was it was unforeseen that DWP had a cost?
Well, they gave the developer an estimate based on their engineer's view of it at the time, and then the bids came back. The real bids came back, quite a bit higher. And this happened to a project of ours, a supportive housing project on Pico recently, where there was all this undergrounding and stuff that they had to do, and and there was only a few vendors that bid.
But isn't this? I mean, usually you've got so many vendors and bids. It's all about averaging, right? You're never going to get all your vendors. Some going to come over, some going to come under. Couldn't they scale back something else in the project? And I'm not going to hold this one up. Obviously, it's incredibly important, but I'm just concerned because 1%, you should be able to find that in a project.
Right. Well,
why is it all of a sudden DWP cost overrun? Let's go after the homeless one.
Well, there's two projects being built here. There's two buildings, and this amounts to like the smaller building. Its share of the offsite costs is 6% of the total for the public improvements. And at some point, they're going to need to repay the master partnership, and they need to identify a source that we can close, or the investors won't come in. And we're already giving them the most we can under the Triple H program. And these are kind of extraordinary costs. We don't usually get street widenings and things of that nature in this kind of project.
So CLA and CAO both agree this is worth signing off on.
There isn't a staff report on this motion at this time. It really was sort of we were trying to work to identify other ways to close this gap, and this was all the other options sort of exhausted themselves.
Because generally, we do this kind of thing, we'd like to see those reports, because that's,
Well, this is a policy decision. It's not really a financial one.
I think it's a financial
Well,
one. I mean,
money's in the account, so it's a policy call.
I disagree. For the
Okay.
record, I disagree.
Well, that's why-
I'm happy to move it forward, but I think it's a financial question.
Well, as long as you're going to make it for the record, I would absolutely disagree. It's definitely a policy call because we're about to vote on it. So let me ask the question on this. Is there a reason this didn't go to the homeless committee?
The motion was referred to Budget and Finance when it was introduced. I'm not sure if there was a discussion about whether or not to also refer it to homelessness.
And that would be the appropriate policy committee for it to look at if this were appropriate use of funds. And that's really what we're looking at, is it an appropriate use of funds, period. That there's no other call on this. It's not even it's not a loan, is it an appropriate use of funds? I mean, it's a pretty simple call. My concern is that from a budget perspective, we could look at it, is it an appropriate use of funds? But it's really a policy decision and a policy call. My bigger concern is that this does open the door for, as Mr. Blumenfield said and Mr. Bonnet opened with, it's ripe for other opportunities, and we're going to keep seeing more and more of these. And I think that overall, this is not where the intention, from my perspective, the intention of this funding source was supposed to go towards. With that, I would think things like this should always go to the policy committee. It's not your call. I get that. It is, I'm not sure what was originally stamped on this motion. Was it waived out of another committee?
No, it was only stamped to Budget and Finance.
Only stamped to Budget and Finance.
Blame it, Buck.
No. I mean, we blame a VOC for everything anyway, so I'm fine with that as a matter of course, Mr. Bonin. Let me just see here.
Stamp Budget and Finance.
Look at the original. Was there any kind of expediency requirement on this? That's the original. Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you.
What was the loss of funding source?
The loss of funding source?
Mm-hmm. There's a gap in funding for the 25 units of supported housing for the youth due to the loss of a funding source.
Oh, the loss of, I'm not familiar with.
Well, this is a tandem project. So these public improvements are being built across both halves, and they did apply to the state for what's known as cap and trade money, and they didn't get it. And they have largely solved that on the senior building side, but there is these offsites do need to be paid for.
But it wasn't, I thought you said it wasn't a loss of funding, it was an extra charge by DWP.
Right, that there just isn't any money to pay for. I mean, if they had gotten the cap and trade money, I think we would have been fine.
I think
But they didn't.
There's some developer equity in the project that is being used to partially offset not receiving the state funding that could have been used to fill this gap.
Okay, what's the urgency? What's the time frame on this?
Well, they were ready to close on the 20th.
I understand that, but They know we're also in the middle of a process and it's being heard, and,
Ms. Dussault is from City Forest here as well. She may have something to add.
yeah, no, I saw her. Thanks. So my question, though, is there any reason that this can't go to the proper committee as well? I mean, this is the proper committee, but it should be heard in housing, or homelessness as well. Is there any objection to that?
Is there a deadline?
We can get it agendized.
I don't think the concern is over a one-time, one-off, let's get this project going, it's critical, and this is a roadblock, and time is of the essence, and it's due to close, and it's important to the council member clearly as well, and we support that, I think is what I'm hearing from my colleagues. What I'm concerned about is a grab and a reach around by other projects to pull funds in to close their projects for other reasons as well. And this is creating that precedent, because we're never ones to say, we can't continue doing this, so let's stop. We'll always be ones to say, we've done it before, let's keep doing it. Or it was only fair because another council member did it and found funds available, where this wasn't really the intention of that. And that's my dilemma. And so what I would suggest is that we send this to the Homeless Committee for review, and that this be approved with a contingency. It's contingent upon going to council with it first going to Homeless and Poverty Committee. That's what I would suggest based on the discussion that I've heard from my colleagues. And if it's critical on time, there's absolutely no reason they can't call for a special meeting. Or if the chair of the committee is absolutely comfortable with it, he's got the ability to waive it as well. Has the chair of the committee been briefed on this? Do we know? It's Harris Dawson, is that correct? Has Harris Dawson been briefed on this, and is he supportive?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so that would be my concern. So I would suggest, colleagues, that we go ahead.
You're saying he has, I apologize.
Yes.
Yes, he has, he's aware.
Come on. Are you okay with that? Okay. So,
Sorry, Sarah.
so if we can go ahead and support it, move it out of this committee with a yes vote, if you are all good with that. And then with the, but then we have it sent over to Homeless and Poverty Committee as well.
And maybe the CLA and CAO can look at it before it comes to council.
And then the recommendation, it would say that at least the CLA to look at it and deem if these are appropriate funds per Councilmember Blumenfield's request.
To be clear, we had been working, I was saying there wasn't a report on the file from CLA or CAO, but we have been working closely with the council office and speaking with the CLA and the CAO have been working with the council office and the developer and each said to verify the gap and the need for the funding, and we were working hard to try and find other sources or other ways to fill the gap, and this was the only source that we were able to find.
Okay. So the recommendation,
it has been reviewed, it just wasn't reported on.
Got it. Okay, so the recommendation from Mr. Blumenfield then is to add a CLA and CAO report to this, send it to the Homeless and Poverty Committee, and approve it with those conditions out of this committee. Is that correct? Okay. Then that'll be the order without objection. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right, so then the last two items are closed session items, items 1 and 2, so we can go ahead, unless you're in here on items 1, we'll start with that first.